Hey, what's up? This is Wilfer with Abysmal Hymns. I got Reza Mills back, and this time we are going to be talking about noise rock, which is a logical progression, I think, from our last topic of post-punk, because I see kind of noise rock as like an evolution of punk. It definitely has the aggression, but it kind of like also meets at a crossroads with metal in places. When I think of like bands like Unsane and even the Melvins, there's a lot of sludge, early sludge kind of intersecting there. Um, but definitely it's more of a rock and roll feel and I don't know, not as dark or a different shade of darkness than the metal. What are your thoughts on that definition?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Actually, I was doing a little bit of research, being organized for once. And I suppose you could trace the roots originally to bands like the Velvet Underground, especially a song like The Gift, and also a band, excuse the pronunciation, um, Rezil Denude. I can't quite pronounce that, but they're a Japanese band. They're like this
Okay.
weird crossover psych art band who would go on to inspire a lot of the Japanese noise rock stuff as well. But yes, going back to what you were saying, it's definitely an evolution of post-punk and I would say hardcore as well, because you also had bands like Flipper who
Hmm.
did not fit into hardcore. In fact, I'm sure they probably got bottled off a few times back in previous days. I'm sure they toured with Black Flag actually. But yeah, I can't imagine them going down so well. And obviously, Flipper begat No Trend, and then it begat the Melvins, and then onwards and onwards, we had grunge and all the different incarnations. So yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I also think that the weird thing with noise rock is it's such a strange term because it's like noise rock. I mean, what the hell is that? It seems to encompass everything that's a bit discordant that people can't quite categorize because it's not really metal, even though it's heavy. It's not really hardcore, although there might be tiny bits and pieces there. So it's like, well, this band's a bit noisy. Yeah, noise rock, yeah, that will do because it's so ubiquitous now. So it's so multifaceted, but yeah, it's not an easy one to define, but it is enjoyable nonetheless.
Right. And there's the label that we can't kind of not talk about because it's sometimes I've even heard noise rock be described as amphetamine reptile bands.
Yeah.
And so I think that scene definitely influenced where noise rock is today.
Mm, undoubtedly, yes, you would be totally right. AmRep was a huge, huge label, as were Touch and Go and things like that. Yeah, I mean, definitely the found one of the foundation points for the thousands of noise rock bands around, and that we probably both of us have reviewed for Ghost Gold at some
Right.
point.
All right. Well, what's your first album? We're gonna go through our top five favorite noise rock albums. So what's your number one? Or these don't have to be in order. There's whatever's
Okay.
your top pick.
Sure. Well, I'll go from descending order then. So number five, I decided to stick to Blighty and have a band called McCluskey. And their second album, McCluskey Do Dallas. Um, Obviously, and they take on the somewhat infamous porn film Debbie Does Dallas, in case folk don't understand why it's typed of that. Yeah, three-piece Welsh existed from about the mid 90s up until the mid 2000s. Then they reformed in about 2014. In fact, they put out a new album this year, which I reviewed for my other place, The Sleeping Shaman. Musically, I suppose if you're into that weird angular shellac sound, there's a very, very heavy sort of a lot of weird, surreal Steve Albini type of humor, just to give you an idea as to what on earth I'm talking about. If I give you some of the track listings, like Fuck This Band, Lightsaber Cocksucking Blues, The World Loves Us, and Is Our Bitch. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. That kind of definitely, if you're into Steve Albini, if you're into shellac and that kind of sound, Bob's your uncle. I think you're going to absolutely love what McCluskey do.
Yeah, I've heard their new album and they've always been in my periphery.
Yeah.
I've had, some of my punk friends, they're like the one kind of cult band that they are all into is either they're either they go into two camps. It's either McCluskey or Turbo Negro,
Oh,
and
yeah.
which the Turbo Negro ones also are into Motorhead.
Yes. Well, they've got the
Um,
others, haven't they, in their name, Grow, yeah.
but I
Yeah.
think McCluskey's probably better players.
Yeah, I'm not overtly familiar with Turbo Negro, even though I've kind of got an idea of what their sound is. But yeah, I suppose McCluskey might appeal perhaps more to indie kids,
Hmm.
perhaps, whereas Turbo Negro, I get the feeling there's a bit more of a hard rock bikery feel, which
Right, right,
cool as well, of course, but just, yeah, different camps.
right. Well, my first pick is going to be, and these aren't in order.
Hmm.
Maybe this would be top if it was anyway. It kind of picks up from where we were talking last time, and it's going to be Sonic Youth's Dirty album.
Ooh, okay.
Um, so my favorite Sonic Youth album is Daydream Nation, but I
Mm,
don't think that one's noise rock. And I think that it's kind of a testament to them as a band that they
mm,
can have albums that fall into different genres.
mm.
Goo, I think, is probably halfway in between the two.
Yeah.
And I think and Goo might be a little noisier and more abrasive in places, but I think the songwriting here on Dirty is just, like that kind of broke them in to the MTV crowd a little bit in some ways with that
Can't
100% song.
disagree. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. 100%, if I remember correctly, is on that. Was Cool Thing on there with
No,
Chuck?
Cool Things on Goo.
Oh, that's on Goose,
Yep.
sorry. But yes, obviously the genesis of all this poppier approach comes from Goo. But yeah, Dirty was them kind of, as you say, really veering towards MTV. Obviously unconsciously they maybe wanted to start writing hooks. But yeah, I mean it's a good record. I would say if anyone wanted to get into that band, that's probably a good place to start. I
Right.
wouldn't go like, oh yeah, Whack on Confusion is sex first. No,
Yeah.
that's not going to get you into the band,
No.
Yeah, good choice.
All right, what you got next?
So I just mentioned them briefly in our intro, and I'm actually going to include No Trend. I don't know if you're familiar with these lads. The album's called Too Many Humans, and basically, if you're into sort of very early Public Image, and if you love Flipper, then there's a good chance you're going to really dig these guys. It's kind of very, very cynical lyrics. They have songs that slag off the Discord Records crowd. They have songs that criticize the hardcore crowd. They're just very cynical, very jaded, harsh vocals. It's just such an amazing record. One of their songs, for example, which is called Too Many Humans, I'm sure one of the lyrics is you breed like rats and you're no fucking better. That's the sort of thing we're talking about. Very dark. And curiously, they would go from that to then jamming with Lydia Lunch a couple of years later on A Dozen Dead Roses, like a no wave album. They defy categorization. Um, but yeah, that especially that first album though, check it out.
Yeah, I'll have to dig into them a little bit. I'm familiar with their period with Lydia Lunch,
Yeah.
but that's kind of where it begins and ends with me. And they're just a name that I've always, kind of seen around in like Maximum Rock and Roll or whatever.
Yeah, they're a very interesting band. That's a really good record with Lydia. They did two more albums after that. I mean, for Christ's sake, they put out an album called More, which was too much for Touch and Go. So it got delayed, and only got put out years after the band split. I mean, if you're too much for Touch and Go, you must be doing something right. So yeah, brilliant band. Definitely check out Too Many Humans if you like that sort of Flipper meets Public Image sort of sound.
Sure. So my next one, I mean, obviously one of us was going to bring these guys up,
Yeah.
is the Jesus Lizard's
Yeah.
Liar album,
Yes.
which for me, it's more of, there could be like Goat is a great album, and
Mhm.
I guess it was just the album that came out and the time that I heard it is what left the biggest impression on me. And
Mm.
I think that they kind of border metal in some ways with the guitar tones, and there's like a tension to them. And David Yao's performance is very aggressive and confrontational. So yeah, it just for me that album though left the biggest first impression. And music is very like nostalgic. We always hang on to the stuff that made those impressions for us. So for me, that's the album I would be my go-to for those guys.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. I mean, I don't know what you made of their most recent album. I mean, I covered that one for Ghost Cult. And I gave it quite a generous review, but looking back, it maybe wasn't quite as stand out as say Liar or Goat or any of those older ones. But then how could it be? I mean, these guys are
Yeah, it was
60.
more rock and roll to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, how can you possibly top an album like Live
Right.
or Go? It's impossible. I mean, it's like trying to get Queen to recreate Night at the Opera. It's virtually impossible, you're a lot older. So,
Yeah, I think it's good for what it is. I don't think
yeah,
that it compares,
no,
because
no,
it's
no,
not as dark, it's not as angry,
no.
and the production is very dry.
Yeah.
The vocals are very upfront. It's mixed like you know, Queens of the Stone Age's album or something. Um,
Yeah. But yeah, you can't go wrong with the Jesus Lizard. And of course you had Albini producing Liar,
yeah.
like of their early stuff. So with that combo, I mean, you can't really go wrong.
All right,
So,
what you got next?
I don't know if you've got these guys, but I thought it again, like the Jesus Lizard, it's kind of inevitable. I've got Helmet, and the album I went for was Strap It On. Um, I mean, you'll know who these guys are, of course. I think most people
Mhm.
will do. Um, I remember when was it now? 2004, 2005. I kept meaning to listen to them because I mean, obviously, I love the Melvins and all those other bands, and I was like, okay, Helmet. I mean, everyone keeps going on about them. And so I ordered from Amazon a copy of Strap It On and I put it on. I was like, oh my God, this is absolutely incredible. There's just these massive grooves. It was like Led Zeppelin meets Big Black or something. I was like, this is immense, so these sledgehammer riffs, but just so perfectly timed. John Stainia's drumming is incredible. And Page, of course, is as great as ever, and the other two guys. So I was absolutely blown away by what I heard, just that syncopated, if that's the right word, rhythm. And I was like, wow, this is the kind of metal I can always be into, because it's metal, it's noise rock, it's I don't know, post-hardcore, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, definitely a crossover band for me.
For sure, yeah. I mean, with Helmet, they I don't know, Betty's my favorite album by those
Yeah.
guys.
Hmm.
Just because I think it like grooves a little more. Although I mean, I also like Meantime and the earlier stuff as well too. Which I think the earlier stuff is more noise rock, where gradually Helmet could take the blame along with Faith No More as being one of the progenitors of new metal. You know,
I agree. Yeah, for better or worse.
yeah. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure the Deftones would say they've listened. In fact, um, I was playing Helmet for my girlfriend who's super into the Deftones, and I was like, "This is almost the same riff." I forget what
Yeah.
song it was, but I played in the meantime. I was like, "This is almost the same riff." And yeah, but I mean, they're obviously a great band. Their later stuff, I have not been as I think Aftertaste was the last album I really got into.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think the early stuff definitely stands the test of time, and an album like Strap It On is certainly would belong on anybody's list.
Well, absolutely. And I want to also add in, you mentioned Betty. I actually got the anniversary reissue thing on Record Store Day. That's a really good one to pick up. I go, Betty's a wonderful album. It was a really difficult choice between this one and that, but I went for this purely based on it was the first album I ever checked out by them, so it was kind of nostalgic value. Also, interestingly, with I remember speaking to someone. They mentioned they really like Silverchair, and like, yeah, I can hear the influence of Helmet on bands like Silverchair, even Therapy and Curb Dog, and all these little weird, like later, I suppose they called them post-grunge, what that horrible post-grunge tag. So yeah, their influence just extends everywhere.
Right. See, I like therapy. They
Hmm.
I guess in over there they get more airplay than they do here in the States. Nobody knows who therapy is.
They're everywhere. I do. I mean, I met Andy, Andy Cairns. He's a lovely guy, and I like some of their older stuff. They're very cool, like Husker Du meets Helmet,
Right, right,
basically.
right. Yeah.
Uh,
What's the album, the iconic album? I can't having a lapse on it. It's the guy's heads in the trash can.
Screamager, I
Yeah,
think they
yeah.
pronounce it. So yeah, that's a good one. That's their big record. That's got all the hooks, Die Laughing, and songs like that. Yeah, it's a good one. Can't go wrong with those lads.
I don't
No,
know why they didn't break through in the States, really.
yeah, I don't know. It's weird, isn't it? How some bands sort of connect and some unfortunately do, you know. But yeah, people say should definitely give therapy more of a listen.
Right, for sure.
Hmm.
All right, my next album kind of picks up where I left off with the Jesus Lizard. It's Tomahawk's
Oh,
self-titled 2001 album.
okay.
And I think that I mean Dwayne Dennison's on it, and it's what the drummer from the Melvins I think plays on it too.
Oh yes. Yeah.
And Mike Patton certainly was influenced by all of those early noisy bands, and he his superpower is he has an incredible taste in music.
Mm.
Um, so I think that that Tomahawk album is it's really dark, it's really tense, but it also has that kind of chaotic, explosive element that I think of when I think of noise rock.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm actually just looking at the genre descriptions on Wikipedia. Fatal mistake, but it is listed as alternative rock, experimental, hard rock, post-hardcore, alternative metal, and country. Okay, maybe there's a twang there or something. This is hardly like Garth Brooks, thank God.
Right.
But
Well, they did that one album where they're playing like Indian songs.
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, they're a fun band. I haven't really listened to them for a while. But you know what patterns like. You're just getting into a band and suddenly there's 10 more down the road. So
Right. Yeah. Can't keep up.
bless. 'Em. No, impossible.
Anything that's not too bossa nova. With some of that really super bossa nova stuff he does, I have to draw the line there.
Yeah, yeah, but I do recommend the album we did with Jean-Paul Vanier. I forgot what that thing was called now. Jean-Claude Vanier worked with Serge Gainsbourg. If
Okay.
you Corpse Flower, I think it was called.
Yep.
But
Yep. I
that's
heard that
just
one.
really good orchestral pop. It's just really well done. But yeah, sometimes some of the stuff doesn't quite work. But when he's really truly focused, he hits the mark more often than not.
Right.
Cool.
Correct. And I do think that, that's one thing I didn't bring up when we are first kind of defining noise rock that I think breaks it off from punk is it's more experimental.
Yes. Yeah.
That experimenting is often done with feedback and weird effects on vocals. Like I was listening to that Jesus Lizard album today, and there's some strange things that they're doing to his voice in a few places.
Hmm.
So I think it's a little more. It's like more produced than punk, but it's done so in an abrasive fashion.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, because how I'm going to put this really crudely, especially a lot of early hardcore sounds like shit, especially if it was produced by Spot of
Right.
SC, because terrible sound. I would love all those records to be remastered. But anyway, but you're right. Obviously, even Albini, who wasn't exactly, we're not talking about Bob Rock here, who's
Mm,
fairly lo-fi, but those records still sounded great. They
right.
were clear, they were crisp. Yeah, you're right.
All right, what you got?
Next up, all right, this is a little bit more of an obscure one, perhaps. They're a band called the Laughing Hyenas, um, and the record is called "Come Down to the Merry-Go-Round." They were the band that John Brannon formed after Negative Approach split.
Uh-huh.
And then he teamed up with a girl called Larissa Stolachuk. I think Larissa Strickland, I think her real name is. She was in a band called L7, not the punk band later on, but a sort of post-punk band from Detroit. And the best way to describe them is, I suppose, it's like if you took Alice Cooper, the MC5 and the Stooges, then you crossed it over with Sonic Youth, and the Birthday Party. It's just really abrasive. I don't know if you're familiar with John Brannon's vocals. He has this really rasping, shouty voice. Huge influence on Phil Anselmo, actually.
Hmm.
And it's just this really rumbling, menacing punk blues sound, but within the confines of noise rock. It's like John Spencer Blues Explosion, but not wacky like those guys can be with all the Ike and Tina Turner kind of soul-y things that they do. It's
Right.
just more serious and somber and aggressive than that. And I just absolutely love everything that they do. They did like three records, maybe a couple of EPs, and this Come Down to the Merry-Go-Round was their first album, and yeah, I definitely recommend um, people go and check these out. That record was actually reissued on Third Man Records, which is Jack White's label. So kudos to Jack for that.
Yeah, he certainly has a good ear for, ear for music. I'm not really into any of the music that he
No,
makes, but I appreciate his respect for music.
he's a
And I
sound
mean,
guy, yeah.
his label is now really starting to pump out a lot of reissues and stuff like that that should have been handled before. So,
I think Heat Miser is one of them. The Elliott Smith Band. I think he put out Sleeps records as well.
mhm.
So like this is a dude like who's not just, oh well, we're just gonna have everything that sounds like the White Stripes. We're gonna diversify because that's my musical taste. And kudos to the guy for that.
Yeah, for sure, because he certainly has the, influence to be able to do that
Yeah, for
in
sure.
the biz. So my next one is I mean, I guess if you want to call it a little more mainstream, it's certainly
Okay.
more known from the 90s. And I was debating this one earlier in the week because this band has another album that could have, I had to choose between the two, but
Hmm,
it's the Butthole Surfers Independent Worm Saloon.
good choice.
I was, you know, having a hard time picking between this one and Locust Abortion Technician,
I just love those
which,
names. They're great, aren't they?
yeah, which, that one is more abrasive and experimental. So
Yes.
that's why I picked this one because there's songs. There's more defined songs than just little skits about when you see your mom, tell her that Satan, Satan, Satan.
Oh, it's brilliant. Gibby's just, he's so wacky. He's bonkers. And Paul Leary's an Uber producer now. So,
Okay, yeah, I could see that. I
yeah.
could see that. He did some work with Ministry and he's
Mhm.
kind of flopped around. I downloaded all of their albums when I was searching for this one because this is one that I used to have on cassette
Mm,
and it slipped between the cracks. But I think the key to these guys is, they're creating stories with sound,
mm,
but they're doing it still in an abrasive way. Like this is their most well, the album after this was Hairway to Steve, not Hairway to Steven, the one with you're going Electric Larry Land. I think that's it.
Ah, yes,
That
yes.
was their big commercial album just because of one song.
Yeah, Pepper.
Um, yeah, but this album they got on MTV, but they didn't compromise at all.
No.
And I think that that's one of the I think noise rock is probably at its most popular right now. I would say
Oh.
either now or the 90s. It's hard to say. If you think about like how big bands like Sonic Youth and Helmet got.
Hmm.
Um, but there's more bands coming out. So for me, if I see a trend of a bunch of bands jumping on the bandwagon, then that has to say something about the genre itself that's been endearing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny that you chose this record because I mean, I don't know, I think we're about a similar age, I'm not sure. But I remember seeing Who Was in My Room last night on Beavis and Butthead. And just thinking it's like, well, those two doofuses loved it, and I don't know, they're clueless a lot of the time, but they love that song. And I was like, yeah, fair enough. These guys then have got to have something about them. Yeah, great track, great band. Interesting record. I think Electric Larryland was the one that I heard first, and then I started to work my way backwards from there.
See, so the first album I heard was Locust Abortion Technician
Oh yeah.
because I had a like all of my like metalhead friends in high school were just in their rooms playing guitar all the time.
Yeah.
So when I wanted to like on the weekend drop a bunch of acid, I hung out with these other like outsider kids
Yeah.
that might be in, some of them were into Guar and some of, there was enough connection because I was super judgmental back then of people's music. If you didn't listen to
We
anything
all were
heavy,
at that age.
yeah.
I was a
So
complete dick at that time. Some might say still am, but especially at that time, I was very like, oh, how could you possibly like that? But now I
right.
really couldn't care less.
Oh no, I had to have the tape in my Walkman had to match the shirt I was wearing. Well, nobody told me those were the early stages of autism, but yeah, But anyway, the
Yeah.
story goes that me and this one friend of mine named Wes,
Mm,
we would hang out in he lived in his parents' basement, even though he was, in high school, so the age of where that's the appropriate thing to do.
mm.
But um we would drop acid and he played like the weirdest stuff. So I'd pull out Mr. Bungle's first album and he played Locust Abortion Technician for me. And when you're 16 with a head full of acid, it was a lot to digest. So I
I
also
turned.
got trapped in his room once while he was asleep, tripping, and the CD player was skipping and just playing Manic Depression by Jimi Hendrix over and over
Oh,
again. I had to listen to that song for like 8 hours.
okay. Cool.
Yep.
That's not a bad thing. I mean, if you're gonna be doing that, then yeah,
All
could be
right.
worse. I mean, it's Hendrix.
Yeah,
It's not a
sure.
terrible thing. Cool.
Okay, what you got?
My last choice, I suppose, proper choice. Now, this is a little bit more out of the box. I don't know if I mentioned them earlier, but one of my favorite bands is the Boredoms, from Japan. And early on, I'm going to use a very un-PC term of sorts. It had a very sort of spastic sound, just because, it's like if you like early Mr. Bungle, it's just all over the place. And if you also like bands like Zenny Jiva and Melt Banana, then you would absolutely love the Boredoms. But the record that I'm going to go for is a record called Vision Creation New Sun from '99. And it really, I mean, it's nothing like what they started off doing. It's beautiful. It's like krautrock. There's a bit of psych in there. There's a bit of post rock. There's a bit of space rock. And it's just this all encapsulating wall of noise. If you think about bands like Loop and Spacemen 3 and Ashra Temple, it's that vibe, and it just felt like a natural progression from the more insane noise rock stuff they started off doing. So again, your acid trips might you might be able to do it, drop acid to this record because it's just such an amazing sound. And I'd probably say it's a desert island disc for me.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and they're one of those bands that I'm definitely aware of and have
Mm.
heard. Um, but I don't own any of their albums. But I know, they're very adjacent to a lot of other stuff I listen to. So yeah, I
Mm.
do need to spend more time with them.
Of
Um,
course,
so
the
I
main guy
picked
from the book. Sorry, Will. I
uh,
just forgot to say one tiny point actually.
yeah.
That the main guy, Yakitsuma I think he's called. He played in a band called Painkiller
I
with
am
Zorn.
John Zorn.
So
I
there's
have
a
that album.
connection there. So
Okay,
okay,
that makes
go
sense.
ahead.
For sure. I had to pick one new album, and
Mm.
I picked Chat Pile's Cool World,
Hmm.
which is, kind of a little more sludgy, but I think that those guys are definitely um, kind of combining noise rock with metal in a pretty cool way that, they're more adventurous than most bands out these days for sure.
Hmm. Interesting. They're a name that I've heard, and I think I've heard little snippets, and I have friends who are really into them. I need to give them a proper listen at some point, but the bits that I've heard, what's the big album? Is it Cool World? Is that
Yeah,
the one?
that's the new one. It's either that one or God's Country
Oh,
came
God's
out before
Country.
this one. Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard bits and pieces from both of those, and yeah, I've liked it. I just haven't properly, sorry, invested the time in them. But they're signed to the Flenser, so that's a label. That's an interesting label because that's really very experimental,
Right, right.
but really cool as well. And so they're the perfect fit.
Yeah, they're definitely worth giving a solid listen to because I think they're kind of gonna inspire a lot of bands to kind of go. You're gonna see bands kind of hopping on their
Yeah.
bandwagon, which is probably better than if they were hopping on Turnstile's bandwagon.
Oh God. I mean,
Um,
don't get me wrong, I like Turnstile, but they're kind of a guilty pleasure of sorts. But
yeah,
yeah, I don't want to hear 2,000 bands that sound like that.
right, right, right. Yeah, I mean they've kind of turned into uh the 1975 or something. I don't know.
Oh
It's
God. What a ghastly thought. Jesus. I
I
can't
don't
stand
know.
that
The
guy.
new album, I like a few songs, but it's
Hmm.
like for all the hype, it was chronically underwhelming. That'll
Well,
go in my top five underwhelming albums of the year.
shame, shame. Oh
But
well.
yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff to check out here for sure. I think that the one thing that all these albums have in common
Hmm.
is that there's a lot of organized chaos and a lot of experimentation. It's definitely all like outsider music, like the Laughing Hyenas. I heard of them from that book about the Krautzen,
Hmm.
and they were like they played shows with those guys. So that shows that there was a lot of interconnectedness with the early hardcore scene for sure.
There's a really funny story actually about John Brannon from the Laughing Hyenas. He talks about he knew Eric Erlandson of Hull, and he said Eric Erlandson was with this girl. He didn't even know who she was, and he drunk so much it ended up like vomiting all over her. It turned out to be Drew Barrymore. It's like, yeah, that sounds like John Brannon. Because he was out of it, you know.
Right, right, right.
Guys were very often.
Yeah, I mean, I like Negative Approach. So I do
Oh
need to
yeah.
spend more time with those guys. I listened to them when I kept hearing them mentioned in that De Krautzen book, so I've given them a shot.
Good. You digging it?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yep. It's good stuff for sure.
Good. Nice one.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we'll have to have you back. Maybe next time we can get into uh punk music. I know Keith wanted to talk
Hmm.
about punk, but I have a feeling there'd be a lot of Ramones in there. So
Well, I like the Ramones, but they're like Motorhead. You hear two or three albums, you're pretty much set.
yeah, I would say
Let's be honest.
AC/DC would be in
Yeah.
that bag for me.
Agree.
And I
Absolutely.
do say there was one album here that I'll just throw in real quick as a
Hmm.
last mention.
please.
which was Today as a Day is Temple of the Morning Sun.
Ah,
But I
yes.
vetoed it in favor of Chat Pile just to get something new in, and it's a little more on the metal side.
And my very, very, very quick late addition honorable mention would be Couch Slut. You could do it tonight.
Yep, that's a good one. Same
Fantastic.
thing. There's a lot of overlap in between sludge bands and noise rock bands now.
And that band is nasty sounding. I love it. It's just filthy. It's like Buzz Oven if they decided to start, jamming with Unsane or something. It's
Right.
incredible. With those explicit covers as well. Jesus.
And she, the singer I saw, was
Yeah.
going to be on somebody's album, does a track on somebody's album that's coming out, but I can't think of who it is now.
Ah,
Oh,
okay.
well.
Megan, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, it's
great.
an interesting one. I like it. I like that it's dark and that,
Yeah.
she's screaming about real stuff. So I can appreciate
Oh,
that for
yeah.
sure.
Not a bad thing. Absolutely.
No, no, no. We need some reality filtered through the art at some point in time.
Oh, for sure.
Well, cool, man. I will talk to you soon and we'll have to get you back on here.
I'd love to. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.